Oh, yeah, okay, got it. We fear the robot overlords are going to come in. Their intelligence is going to take over our jobs. They're going to take our freedom. They're going to enslave us. And popular culture, it capitalizes on this emotion. It works to sell Terminator tickets and Asimov novels, right? But this is not our future. We can celebrate artificial intelligence as our greatest accomplishment. We can harness it for the tool that it really is. We can examine our relationship with computers as tools and how we allow computers to do the work, but we allow humans to do the innovating. So today I want to encourage you to innovate. Today I want to encourage you to put as much of your unique self into everything that you do, into as much of your work as possible, to keep learning, to improve our current systems, and to see the computer as a tool rather than a substitute. My name is Christina Aldan. I'm a speaker, trainer, digital advertising consultant, and I'm based in Las Vegas. If you want to find me online, you can type in Lucky Girly Girl, and I come up everywhere on the interwebs. Thanks so much for Voxxed for having me today, and all of our sponsors. So we, as humans, we are really, really great at finding threats. Our brains are exceptional at finding patterns where maybe we're going to be threatened, right? Within all of us, our subconscious, we have this quality. It's really useful. It's really useful if there is a threat, a real threat, 100%, something that is actually happening. But, if that deep primal fear, if that neural pathway gets activated and there really isn't an actual current threat, then it prevents us from responding in a responsible manner. Oftentimes we're just going around reacting, right? We see this sometimes with entrepreneurs. We're just running around reacting, putting out fires. But if our brains are ruminating on something from the past or something from the future or something that's not real, then it affects our performance and extends into our daily lives. It extends into our relationships. It extends into how we do our work. And we end up reacting instead of responding. And I am guilty of this. I used to ruminate on the past. I would sit around. I'd go to a networking event, a party, a conference, a job interview. Who else has done this? And you walk away and you're like, oh, why did I say that? What was I thinking? I would ruminate on it for days. And you can just spin your mind over and over on these things, and it's really not that useful. It's really not that helpful to us. And once I stopped ruminating on the past, once I brought that awareness and I kind of overcame that, then I started ruminating on the future, just worrying about potential things that might happen. Oh my gosh, I've spent a fair bit of my life worrying about the future on things that never even came to fruition, right? And I still do this sometimes. It's called anxiety. I get nervous before I get up on stage. I get nervous before I do a training workshop. I get nervous before I travel. And if you really want to experience a human contradiction, then be somebody who travels the world and talks about managing your emotions, but daily I'm always worried and all caught up in my emotions, right? So, I've suffered most of my life with chronic pain and with anxiety and with fear and ruminating over things over the past. And, here's the thing, worrying about the future, worrying about what might possibly happen, it takes us out of that current present moment. It takes us out of considering what's possible for us. If we're afraid of what's going to happen in the future, then we're not understanding really what's possible for our future because we're so caught up of that. And that's anxiety. That's the definition of anxiety. It's perceived fear of something that may happen. Because ruminating on things in the past or worrying about what might happen, it takes us out of that present moment. And again, remember, our brains are excellent at finding threats. We have a highly developed neurological system to recognize threats, and we learn very, very quickly so we can avoid any kind of future issues, right? And that's great. Yay, our big brains, we're humans, that's awesome. But when the biological fear response is triggered, when it's activated and there's really no threat, that's when we get into trouble. It starts to affect how we work, how we interact with other people, how we respond in a responsible manner. And this is why marketing and advertising, why my industry is so effective, right? It keeps people in that state of fear of missing out, fear of not being good enough. For us in the United States, Thanksgiving is coming and Black Friday, and you see all these people lining up. I need to get the sale. And this marketing and advertising stuff works. It taps into that primal biological fear response. And, you know, there are lots of different fears that we can tap into. Like I said, fear of missing out, fear of abandonment, fear of lack, fear of being replaced, fear of not being cool. We have these primal fears. It creates anxiety, it creates separation, and it removes us from the present moment. It removes us from reality and from considering the possibilities that are available to us. It separates us from what actually is. And here's the thing, though. We don't want separation. We want connection. We want relationships. We want to belong. We want to feel included. We want to matter, right? And we fear that the robot overlords are going to come in and they're going to take that away from us. So there's this primal fear that's being activated. And that fear of, I don't matter. I can be replaced. It extends into our daily lives and it influences how we act with people, how we do our jobs. The fear of, I don't matter and I can be replaced. Now, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of developers. I work with a lot of females who are business owners, startups. And here's what I think. I think that people should do the innovating and computers should do the work. Oh. I don't believe that AI is going to take over the world like in some Terminator movie. As long as humans continue learning and they're willing to view artificial intelligence as a tool rather than a human substitute, right? Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower, and the world needs more leaders. You don't have to be a team lead, a manager, a boss to lead from within. The world is desperate for innovative solutions to ease their pain. So desperate that they're willing to risk everything for what they believe in, right? We need innovative solutions to deal with the state of the world today. And we don't need any more followers. We need critical thinkers. So if you have an idea that solves a problem, then I encourage you to explore it more. The world needs more leaders. And anyone can be an innovator. You can innovate a more effective training program. That's innovation. You can create a new innovative app that connects people in ways that are unique to meaningful experiences, that brings more purpose to their lives, right? You can think of an innovative way to give people more time. Man, if somebody solves that, I need like 6 to 8 more hours every day in my day if I could manage that. Innovators are irreplaceable. These are valuable skills that humans have. And, you know, we have 2 things that artificial intelligence cannot do. Innovators can't be replaced by artificial intelligence. And, you know, innovators are the leaders in technological advancements. Everyone in this room, I consider a leader. You're here, You're learning more, you're exploring other possibilities, you're collaborating, you're looking at more tools and what's possible for our future. The early adopters are the ones who drive innovation. And again, this is why in marketing and advertising, we appeal to those early adopters, right? The ideas people, you. We need your solutions. And the thing is, artificial intelligence is just that. It's artificial intelligence. It's not artificial emotion. It's not artificial humanity. It's things that involve computational decision making. AI replaces jobs where the human condition is not necessary. I view artificial intelligence as an accessory, a complement to my work, a tool to help me be a better human. And here's what I know that I can bring to the table that a robot can't. Critical thinking and, infinite amounts of contradiction. So let's look at critical thinking. A human has critical thinking capacity that AI doesn't because we feel. So that means we can intuit, right? We pick up on things that a computer might miss, like sarcasm, trepidation, anxiety, deception. We interpret body language and intonation and facial expressions that artificial intelligence can't quite do. And we've got a gauge for detecting nuance of communication that's better than any AI could possibly have. The other thing is that there are a million examples of our uniqueness. We can watch the same movie, for example, right? We can read the same book, and it's going to be a very different experience from what I get out of the book or what I get out of the movie than what you interpret, what you take out of it. And I read books sometimes more than once, even myself, within my own perception. If I read a book today and I read it 5 years later, I'm still going to get something different out of it. And that really makes us unique. My friend Kelly Jones, he's colorblind. I didn't know that this was a thing, but apparently there are 3 different ways of color. Did you know this? 3 different methods you could. Protonope, deuteronope, and tritanope. He's a tritanope. Now that means that he can't see blue and yellow. He can't see blue and yellow. And so, what that means also is that when I'm standing up on stage wearing my red dress or my red pants, my friend Kelly Jones sees me wearing mustard, which is like the worst color for an Asian woman, by the way. He's not allowed to come see me talk. Forget it. I don't want you seeing me talking. Mustard? Really? That's how you see me? And he said, well, yeah, I don't know. It's just how the world looks to me. But he has a very unique perception and worldview and experience of the world. And those differences, they make us all original. And they also connect us as humans in a way, that we can learn how similar we are as well. Here's another example, if we have a publishing house, for example, we can scan an author's body of work. Right? We can scan it all in, all the material. We can tell the AI, go ahead and do the copy editing. They can make it perfectly grammatically correct, but it cannot bring the author's style, right? I know for myself, I don't always write grammatically correct because speaking is oftentimes not grammatically correct, right? But also, the author, will create twists and turns and flips and contradictions in their writing that AI cannot replicate. And when I think of the things that ring false, then I, as a human, I don't have to experience a material or data to improve on it. An AI bot, it has to be fed data in order to process the information, in order to calculate the information. And even though it's humans who decide to feed the information, to feed the data to the robot, we can't help but leave out valuable information about it, right? Because It's not that we're necessarily withholding it, but we have confirmation biases. We can't help it. It's nearly impossible to quantify perception, judgment, instincts, the things that make us human. AI processes only the definitive facts, but we process the way the information is delivered. We make assessments based on our prior experiences, and a myriad of other variables that help shape our worldview and our unique perception. It gives us clues on how to process the information, how accurate that it might be. Maybe somebody's not always being so truthful when they deliver the information. And then we take that and we can choose an action. We can decide from there what the best course of action is. And contradiction, oh my gosh, contradiction. Every single one of us is a walking contradiction. 7.6 billion of us on this rock, and every single one of us is a walking contradiction. But we can use this to our advantage. We can use this to do our advocating, innovating. we can play the devil's advocate and say, actually, what would happen if we turn this on our head and instead design the app from the top down instead of the bottom up? We can consider our contradictions and look at our confirmation bias and examine where our blind spots are. And we can review any potential stumbling blocks or opportunities. And artificial intelligence cannot do that. And speaking of confirmation bias, confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. So, this can cause a lot of contradiction in what we think we want and what we actually want, right? We might think we want this, but we actually really want this. And that causes us sometimes to even act out in self-sabotaging ways. I've self-sabotaged things in my life that, those confirmation bias, they sneak up on you because you can't see them. It's our blind spots. And it prevents us from making rational judgments sometimes. It influences how we respond, we react, we behave. There are things like how we behave in social situations, our capacity for our brains to process information. I mean, look at, somebody put together the Cognitive Bias Codex. Look at this. Professionals have been studying biases for decades, this one right here is broken up into memory, speed, our need to act fast, our meaning, our information overload. No wonder why we're full of contradictions. We create stereotypes. We are drawn to details that confirm our existing beliefs. We project our current mindset and assumptions onto future or past experiences. We have a tendency to look for information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. And it affects how we gather info. And we also ignore information that doesn't align with our worldview. Through confirmation bias, we can form and we can reform stereotypes that we have about people. And artificial intelligence doesn't have this. So what's the answer? Empathy. Empathy connects us. Empathy taps into our natural intuition. And I'm not talking about sympathy. Sympathy can sometimes divide us. Sympathy can sometimes try to put a silver lining on something. Sympathy can sometimes separate us because it wants to fix things. Empathy says, hey, I'm sorry you're going through this. It really sucks. I don't know how you're feeling exactly, but you know what? You don't have to go through this alone. I'm here with you. Sympathy says, oh yeah, sorry that you lost your child. At least you have another one. What? That's weird. Sympathy can come off as platitudes or trying to fix something, and without really listening and understanding and hearing the other person's pain. And so here is where we have an advantage over artificial intelligence. I don't fear a hostile robot takeover because there are ways that we can all lean into our own humanity and cultivate more empathy in our lives and come up with more innovative solutions that are going to solve our problems creatively so we can co-create and co-lead a brighter future for us, for our children. And here's some things that we can do. I want everybody to start considering ways that maybe they can strengthen their own empathy muscle, to lean in to what makes you more human. The first thing is that we can tap into what's naturally built into our brains. Our brains have this quality called mirror neurons. And that means that when we see something happen to someone who looks like us, our brain links us to them. We become more compassionate. It means if someone's scared, then we can use our empathy to try to understand what they're going through and try to help them. Empathy is our secret weapon. We can cultivate more empathy as well by apologizing and course correcting. We catch and correct, as my coach says. Apology can help us create more empathy. The best apology is changed behavior. Have you heard that before? The best apology is changed behavior. So that means don't apologize to me and then just keep going along with the same behaviors. Instead, learn from your mistakes, own up to your consequences, and then move forward with changed behavior. And, sometimes we get people on the really extreme side of this who over-apologize and take on all of that burden all to themselves. They carry a lot of guilt and they carry a lot of shame with them, which, we can empathize with that too. Another thing that we can do to create more empathy is give people the gift of the benefit of the doubt. Now, historically, I'm not very good at this. Generosity is the best thing that we contribute here. My default go-to assumption, and maybe some of you can relate to this, is when something doesn't go my way, the universe is conspiring against me. Oh, of course it's raining. Well, yeah, of course it's raining because, the universe is just against me, and I was wearing these shoes today, and so now I have to go change my shoes, and the universe just doesn't want me to wear these shoes today. It's awful. Historically, I've had this tendency to get into victim mode, and it's as if the whole entire planet is against me, I take things personally. We all know somebody like this. You take things personally, but I'm learning to be generous with my assumptions. I'm learning to not take things personally, and this translates into my communication. It translates into my relationships. It translates into my work. And so, instead of, for example, getting all bent out of shape when somebody interrupts you, we can take that opportunity to practice more empathy, give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Just kind of let them go on and on and on and on, and on and on and on. And sometimes we don't notice. We might not think they notice, but people notice. And pretty soon they're talking, and then they realize, oh, I'm just talking at somebody right now. They kind of fizzle out. But here's the thing. If you create more resistance, then what do? They start talking over you again, louder and louder. And we can model empathy by giving somebody the benefit of the doubt and just kind of letting them go and imagine what it's like to be them, to be so excited or to be so riled up that they just feel like they need to talk over somebody. That's empathy. Another thing that trips the empathy switch is vulnerability. It's usually a situation where somebody's being vulnerable that brings out the empathy in people, right? Humans respond naturally to somebody who is expressing their vulnerability. Humans respond positively to somebody who's expressing their vulnerability. So for example, if I stand up here and I go, oh, I'm nervous about being on stage, what we know is that 90% of the population is afraid of public speaking. So probably 90% of the audience can relate. They can empathize when I say, ooh, I'm a little nervous up here. And then, it helps boost confidence, when it helps create connection. It helps us in our communications with each other when we can show that empathy when somebody's being vulnerable. Humans want to naturally help. And listen, the bots are great. AI is great. Like, I get it. I use it. I use it in metrics. I use them in my digital advertising, in my campaigns. I find more connections, right, with the help of bots. But, technology, as it attempts to make us more efficient as humans, there's lots of success, in that. But it can also, it can drive us apart. And so when you lean into your own humanity, that's where the greatest innovations succeed. When you think about your why of what you're doing, your purpose, that's when the innovation happens. I mean, think about it. If you're a developer, if you're an engineer, you're a programmer, typing is the easiest part of your day. We can type. We can write code. But can we write code with artistry, with passion, with your unique style and signature? Now, I can't measure the difference. I can't measure the difference if I tap into my empathy, my humanity. If we're walking down the street and I smile at you and you smile back at me, and somehow that just makes your day a little bit brighter and makes my day a little bit brighter, and there's that moment of connection, right? But I know, even though I don't know how to quantify that, I know that in fact does make their day a little bit better. My friend Jessie Sternschus, she's currently actually working on a project right now with the Mayo Clinic in New York about how we can quantify that information. The AI algorithms, they tell us about the connections that are already there. But it's really our hearts that tell us, the human heart and capacity for vulnerability and empathy and love that tell us what those relationships can become. So if we lean in to our humanity, we can actually become stronger and become more connected. AI is unlikely to replace any occupations where emotion and humanity and empathy are an important element. And, artists, teachers, engineers, programmers. AI is also going to be unlikely to replace many jobs where emotion is not an element of the job. The human condition might be essential to that job. You can't put a robot in that position. And at the heart of it all of us humans, we're insecure. We struggle with the idea that we can be easily replaced in our personal relationships, in our business relationships, not just in our jobs, but we need empathy everywhere to make more authentic connections. Connections to people, connections to why we're doing our work, connections to our purpose and the products and the services that we're creating. That's an asset. Sometimes we run around thinking we better be something else, or we have to be someone else, instead of what unique gifts and talents that we have here and what we're bringing to the table, what we're bringing to our work. You can't duplicate Christina Aldan, right? You can't duplicate you and your work. Not exactly. So make it as unique as possible. Like I tell my clients, sprinkle a little bit of Christina Aldan on it. Sometimes people will talk about, there was a chat in Slack about how, but what about my content, and somebody's taking my presentation and copy. But here's the thing, go ahead, take my presentation and content. You're still not going to be able to deliver it the way I deliver it. So now we know what makes us more human. how we can lean into our humanity more. Let's talk about what makes a robot. Isaac Asimov. 3 laws of robotics. Number 1, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Okay, law number 1. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Okay. The third thing that makes a robot is that a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or the second laws. And you know, it's interesting because he came around back later and he even created a 0th law. A robot may not harm humanity or, by inaction, allow humanity to come to harm. You know? And this is used over and over again in science fiction, and it's referred to in many different types of books and films and other media. But you know, later in an interview, when he talked, somebody asked him about your 3 laws of robotics. He said, you know, I believe that ideally humans, they would also follow the laws, but they might not always choose to. Remember, we have these confirmation bias that prevent us from making fully rational decisions. Sadly, we're not always rational. So, what's the answer? We need a hybrid approach. We need people to analyze the data. People have intentions, but they can't make sense of all of this big data, right? Big data is dumb data without a human analyst, without those basic critical judgments. And there's a fear that we're going to get rid of people and just automate the world. But, you know, I get it, but that's not really quite how it works. And I know that the fear of AI taking over when it pervades everywhere. But here's the thing that happens when it's left unchecked, right? Some examples of when we remove the human relationship, when we remove the empathy and AI is unchecked. Here's Tay. Does anybody know Tay? Do you remember Tay? What happened with Tay? Tay was Microsoft's Twitter bot, their chat bot. And it took 24 hours to corrupt Tay. Tay became a racist. It was an experiment in artificial intelligence to help understand how conversational patterns in young people work, right? And the trolls went out there and fed it a whole bunch of racist data, and Microsoft had to disable it within 24 hours. My own Twitter account. Oh my gosh, look at this. Over 45,000 tweets. I set up some automation on my Twitter account and I walked away for a week. Oops. This is what happens when AI goes unchecked. We take out that human element, just like our negative thoughts, just like our fears, just like our anxiety bouncing around our heads unchecked. On a more serious note, here's another example of artificial intelligence left unchecked. In my hometown, 6 miles from my backyard, mass shooting in Las Vegas. And as everybody looked on Facebook to check in, to find their loved ones, all of this fake news and all of these news articles were the #1 top stories that were being fed in the feed, promoting hoaxes and conspiracy and spam and Bitcoin. I mean, unverified information is prolific on social media right now because the algorithms that are used, they're not really filtering it out. We need more human analysts. We need more empathy. We need to lean into what makes us more human. And there are excellent ways that this is working. There are wonderful, brilliant ways. I love Netflix. It's a great example of how artificial intelligence, how they got it right. If I'm logged into Netflix under my own account, I can watch my movies, and then I don't see my 5-year-old's Disney stuff popping up in my feed. Spotify is really wonderful. I remember the days when we had cassette tapes and we had to record and try to get just my favorite song and listen to it on the radio, but I don't have to do any of that now. In fact, Spotify is so great that it feeds me my favorite music, and it goes, hey, you know what? You might also like this, and may I suggest this, and may I suggest this? Awesome. Thanks, Spotify. They deliver it. My favorite songs, my favorite music, I don't even have to think about it. Google Translate rocks at language. When I was younger and I used to travel, I used to carry these tiny little dictionaries, and I'd be going around trying to navigate in foreign languages in different countries, right? I don't even have to do that now. I can talk into my phone. Here you go, you talk into my phone. Oh, this is awesome. We'll type thing. Google Translate is wonderful. Those days of little dictionaries and travel pocket things, they're over. I just have my phone. I can have an entire conversation in another language. AI for Earth. This is something that Microsoft's been working on, right? And investors are throwing a lot of cash into startups, building or leveraging artificial intelligence. Especially right now, artificial intelligence for shopping patterns. People are trying to capture more of the market from Amazon. They want to create highly specialized and customized shopping experiences for people that are personalized, both in the store and online as well. This works for innovative employment. Some people would say that, advances in artificial intelligence are compared to the Industrial Revolution. Artificial intelligence, AI, it's just what's next. Throughout history, inventions have made entire industries obsolete, but, we keep evolving. We keep adapting. It's what we do. I mean, think about it. 1,000 years ago, everyone was a farmer, right? All these inventions possible for fewer people to have to be on the farm and do the heavy labor. And so the rest of the town, suddenly they had to start finding other things to do. There's always going to be a new horizon to conquer. There's always going to be the next thing. And AI is already here. It already pervades our workforce. We have innovative transportation, smart cities, self-driving cars. And while we can't quite mass produce this yet, it's coming. Innovative manufacturing. Robotics are already used to manufacture large-scale things and dangerous work. My brother worked in a paintball factory when he was in college, and he said he used to go into the desiccation room and he just hated it because you walk into the room where they dry out all the paintballs, and he said he could feel the moisture just being sucked from his skin and his sciences. Well, they use AI for that. They use robots for that. You also use robots for things like oil. Large-scale manufacturing, that's dangerous. We can't go under there in that incredible heat and pressure. It's helpful for us. This is a good relationship. Innovative education in our nonprofit in Las Vegas, we use now to work with autistic kids, because autistic kids have difficulties with human interaction, but when it's an object, they learn better. They respond better. They're less afraid because it's just a cute little robot. So when we create automation, we usually start with the simplest thing, right? Screwing in the bolt. We don't start with the most complicated thing. Think about this. These days, something as difficult as a car is fully automated. A car, building a car is considered unskilled labor. That is amazing. We used to go down by the river and wash our clothes on a rock and bang it out and squeeze it and hang it. Now we just walk up to a machine, throw it in, push a button, and walk away, right? It's amazing that we can automate these things. We can automate all of these things. We can change the manufacturing process, but as the robots are tightening the bolts, you know, what the robot can't do is look up and say, hey, you know, notice when a coworker is having a bad day, and stop and say, hey, you know, I see that maybe today you're having a rough time. I'm going to go grab some coffee. Do you want one? That kind of empathy in the workplace, that kind of connection is irreplaceable, and I want to encourage every single person to cultivate more of that. That is what makes us human. That is why we cannot be replaced. And so together we can attain better things. Computers can help humans solve hard problems. They can work alongside people. They can be complementary to us, but they're not a substitution. Humans can substitute each other, but computers can't substitute humans. And entrepreneurs, engineers, developers, they're the ones who drive the passion, the talent, the luck, the innovation. Big data is just dumb data if we can't interpret those complex behaviors, the contradiction, the confirmation bias. For that, we need a human analyst. And the reality is that we lean into that part of ourselves, lean into being more authentic and all the things that make us unique and different from the other humans on the planet. If we do that, we become the innovative, brave, honest, irreplaceable human beings that we want to be. Technology is our creation. And in that way, I guess, you know, you could say we're kind of godlike, right? But we're imparting within technology the task-oriented pieces of ourselves. Offload that stuff so we could do the innovating over here. And as technology advances, we can lean in even harder to that humanity. That cannot be duplicated. We can create AI that's complementary to us. We can innovate and create and impart who we are as individuals and collectively into our technological creations. Humanity cannot be replicated in code and algorithms. Empathy is your superpower. With great power comes great responsibility. So I want you to all use it wisely, use it excitedly, and use it without reservation. Thank you. I have about 5 minutes for questions. Does anybody have a question?
Questions for Christina? Don't worry, I don't need that anyway. Questions for Christina?
Yes. Can we give him a microphone? Thank you.
I saw you like Netflix, but I want to take you to a competitor. Do you watch HBO's Westworld?
I do not. I have seen one episode of it, but yes.
Spoiler alert. The idea is that AI becomes so intelligent that at a certain point in time, it's almost impossible. They go through the Turing test, so it's almost impossible to recognize between humans and machines. You made a very bold statement that AI will never substitute humanity. But I would say in 30 or 40 years ago, nobody would say that you can run a car without any human involvement at all, that you can manufacture a car without any humans touching the bolts. What tells you that in 40 years from now, we might have, well, maybe a virtual Christina Aldan doing the same presentation?
Well, that is exactly the question that I want everybody to stop and ask today, right? How do I make myself more unique so that I can't be replaceable. 7.6 billion of us on the planet, my own contradictions, my own ability to intuit, my own ability to choose to even contradict my own behavior. I think that's what makes me unique, and I believe that that is not replaceable. Sure, maybe 5 years from now, that'll come, and then I'll have to say, wait a minute, what makes me more unique? Maybe it's not just empathy that makes me more unique. Maybe it's something else. And we need to constantly ask ourselves, that's the exact point of my talk, is to continuously ask how we can evolve, how we can improve, how we can not feel stuck. That feeling of stuck is just like, it's like death for me, right? And so I'm always asking how I can lean into what makes me more human. And I think everyone here should be asking that as well. So that 30, 40 years from now, even if there is a virtual Christina up here, she's still not going to be as awesome as me. Does anybody else have a question? We have time for maybe 2 more. Yes.
You said that we are 7 billion, and you asked us to be unique. You also had a graphic that said smart, early adopter, laggers, and stuff like that. Humans are not created equal, so all of us are unique, but some of us are smarter than others, some of us want to be smart, some of us need a simple life. We cannot all strive and be successful in being unique. I think that this is something that we need to answer, because this is the difficult question that your presentation didn't answer. A huge percent of us will not survive this unique test that you ask of us.
Well, that is where we're going to have to disagree, because my belief is that every single person is unique and brings their unique perspective and viewpoint from the world. It doesn't matter to me about how smart you are to be successful. I'm not talking about intelligence here. I'm not talking about success, wealth, getting higher up in the rankings of your company. I'm talking about being your own unique self. You don't have to be brilliant. Everybody is not super smart. That would make us all the same, in fact, if we were all striving to that. Instead, we have to think about what makes me unique, what unique talents, experiences, and gifts am I bringing? And I don't have that answer. I'm not going to sit here and answer that for 7.6 billion people. It is a unique answer, and it will always be different for every single person. I'd like to talk to you more about that. I'm here for a few days, so let's chat more. Yeah, I like that topic. Anyone else have another question? Great, thank you very much.